in either the exemplarity or the non-exemplarity of being black. So the question then becomes the Ellison question at the end of Ellison Man. Maybe in another way they can speak for you. And on the one hand you want to, but on the other hand you want to resist it. Just as, the big question it seems to me is wherever we go, Afro-pessimism is exciting. It's a place where things are happening and then you begin to wonder, can I partake in it? And if you're partaking in it prematurely, am I universalizing it without having paid the price? So there is that tension between the wanting to speak for, and then on the other hand, a kind of a holding back, which says, not yet, or not too fast, my friend, because there is still this unbridgeable gap between the potential for, to speak for versus the abject, almost the solipsistic plenitude of actually, which is kind of the thing that Said will talk about, the Palestinian interiority. There's a beautiful story by Anita Desai where the story goes something like this. There's a game of, hide and seek. And a child hides in the game, and after a point she hides so immaculately that they forget her. So she thinks she's within an actually epistemic space, but in fact she is nowhere. It is so interiorly interior, but it's not even within a game. Who changed the game? I thought I was hiding, and they've all gone home, and I'm still hiding. So initially I thought I was hiding within a space called a certain game, and then the interior had a meaning. But at this particular point that has been eviscerated. So here I am, almost in it's a kind of a punishing solipsistic plenitude. So I'm just wondering, in the case of Fanon, what if he brought in, the big debate about, toward the new humanism, does nationalism at all play a medial role at all? Or is that a kind of a, or is he truly, Seki Oto's work, is he truly conflicted, and really it's not a question of choosing between, psychoanalysis or, the nation state, but in the peculiar place in between, where the ontological and the political are precisely in a meeting which is a non-meeting.
Yeah. No, I think that, see, this is what I think is really the deep, and this is why I really was pausing and hesitating about, at that moment, thinking through what Jared really means, with regard to this question of, well, I guess you could think of it as a question of scale, the relation between the intramural and the world, let's say. Because I think that what it is that I think he means to index, or what is indexed, what is pointed to, I think the question that's implied in the phrase ontological grasp is what I was trying to get at, I think, yesterday, when I was talking about the relation between the intramural and what I was calling a kind of evangelical responsibility. And then today I was thinking about it in sort of different terms, but thinking about it under the rubric of permeation, and then thinking about it in relation to the question of the asymptotic, because it's really, see, the thing is that I have all of these. I hope what was clear at the end today was that I, precisely by way of that very, very minimal and kind of inadequate sort of gestural reading of Husserl, I'm trying to set up, the conditions for a refusal of ontological reach. Okay? And the mode of subjectivity, the transcendental subjectivity that moves that way. Okay. The kind of transcendental subjectivity that Fanon announces at the very beginning of the lived experience of the black is that which he wants to have, which he wanted to claim. So I feel like I'm following in his footsteps, because I think what he's preparing us for in that chapter is a refusal of ontological reach. Right? While at the same time requiring us to recognize the terrible nature of the refusal of ontological reach. So there's a double-ness at the level of the refusal, right? Like I always think about this in relation to Fannie Lou Hamer, right? That ultimately Fannie Lou Hamer's social mission was to refuse the citizenship that was refused to her. But that doesn't mean that she wasn't protesting the original refusal, right? Okay. I'm going to protest your refusal of citizenship, and then I'm going to refuse it because I don't want it. But you can't keep it from me, right? Okay. So So to refuse what has been refused to you, but also to refuse the right of the refusal, right? Okay? So there's this, so refusing ontological reach, okay? But see, the condition of being able, I think, to refuse ontological reach is precisely some further, deeper, lyric analysis and understanding of the intramural, which turns out to become possible, more possible, right? This analysis is more possible by when one, first of all, acknowledges the legitimacy of the term nothingness as a way of describing it, while at the same time requiring immediately a new analytic of nothingness, a new way of understanding what this nothingness actually is, which is itself all bound up with precisely that imperative towards laughter that Nahum was talking about. Okay, in other words, to conceive of the fantasy and the hold, the relegation, the zone of non-being, the intramural, to conceive of it not only as an object of study, but as a place for study, as a monastic zone, a place for theorizing. It's that the alternative is the place for the ongoing theorization of the alternative. So then it comes back to that question, how do you, what's the evangelical moment, I call it, you know? My grandma used to say, the Holy Ghost that Jesus is giving away. You know, here, you know, my refusal of your refusal of me manifests itself as in the way that I'm trying to give you this, you know. Literally, my embrace of my own dispossession is in the fact that I'm trying to give you this dispossession, right? I'm trying to give you what it is to have nothing. I'm trying to give you what it is not to grasp, okay? Not to reach that way. Now, on a very specific kind of personal level, black nationalism was the social structure within which this thought becomes possible. But I always understood, well, I understand it, to think about nationalism as Fanon puts it forward, it's precisely along these lines that you're, in other words, the way you were talking about, it's not that, I mean, you read on national culture, it is, look, in a way that's kind of like Kant, but sort of deeper. It's not, you know what I mean, but I love Kant, so I'm not trying to dog Kant. I mean, I love him, he don't love me, but it's okay. But in a way that's deep like Kant, it's a critique, right? All national culture is a critique of nationalism, but in that Kantian sense, right? And it strikes me that the critique it's not a disavowal of nationalism, but the critique is precisely what's necessary in order to begin to imagine what the relationship will be between the intramural and again, what I'm calling the evangelical. So that, like Frank, in the essay on, so Lewis Gordon, you have to pay the social cost, right? That's a hard evangelical moment. It's true, okay? And I think about it as evangelical, I mean, I hate to be religious or sound religious, not only because I'm not really religious, but because I don't do it very well. But Jesus was, you know, he's like, sell all you have and come with me, right? That's basically what he's saying. Give that shit up, right? And come with me. You have to give something up to come do this, right? You know, that Frank talks about is you have to be willing to dance with death, right? Now, my only thing is, I'm just always, again, by way of what Nahum has led us to, insisting on the laughter that accompanies this, right? That in giving this up, so it's all about this question of what is it that the ones who have nothing have? What is it to have nothing? What is that you have when you have nothing? You know, that's why it's impossible for me to talk about the horror of this without talking about it as being necessarily accompanied by this laughter. It's impossible to talk